Well, Life Church exists to make much of God by showing and telling the story of Jesus in the power of the Spirit of God. The gospel makes all the difference. It's the driving force behind everything that we do here. And one of the things that I love is hearing people's Jesus stories, just to hear what's happening and how Jesus changes everything. We close every service with the statement, Jesus changes everything. And I love being able to show and tell these stories. And so can we just put our hands together and welcome up our brother Neil to do that? All right, Neil, I'm going to try to stick to the script that I gave you. Tell us, a bit about yourself and, just kind of take us on some of your spiritual journey, what you were like before Jesus came in and changed everything, how you even got interested in exploring who Jesus is, and then what your life has been like since you've been following him.
All right, so for those of you who don't know me, my name's Neil Bailey. I've been coming here for about 2 years, maybe a little bit more. Been in Louisville for almost 3. My beautiful bride over there, Christina, and my daughter, Nevaeh, are here to support me and kind of sharing my story. So to kind of give you a brief, kind of the Cliff Notes, meat and potatoes version of my Jesus story. I grew up in a Christian home, always going to church, Sunday school, private Christian school, and I hated every minute of it.
I'm sorry I'm laughing at that.
No, it's okay. To be honest, I've been to church hundreds, if not thousands of times in my life, and never would I ever imagine that I'd be the one sitting up here in the chair with the microphone sharing my story. I would say that my journey to Jesus started by running in the other direction. The only reason why God was ever in my life or Jesus was ever in my life was because other people prayed him there. I struggled in school. I was an ADD kid, so I just kind of decided to rebel against everything that they wanted me to do. I felt that the education and the information they were giving me was preparing me for a future that I didn't want. So I did everything in my power to let everybody know my opinion of it all. By my freshman year of high school, I was thrown out of the private school. I went to public school, which didn't last much more than a year and a half. I was skipping school, hanging with the wrong crowd, running away from home. By my junior year of high school, my parents had enough and shipped me off to a place called Eckerd Youth Alternatives, where I lived outside in the woods and built my own house for a year. Being disconnected from, I guess you could say, the real world, I was connected with God and a little bit more just based on how secluded I was from everything. There was no outside distractions, and for me, it's always kind of been like that with nature and God. I've always been more connected with God outside. Got back from wilderness camp. My parents decided not to send me back, basically paid a private teacher to give me a diploma for high school. Once I graduated, I continued to get in trouble and burn every bridge that was set before me until I had nowhere else to go. I dropped out of college, chasing a girl when I was 19. Within a month of running away to Little Rock, Arkansas, I crashed my car drunk into a tree going 80 miles an hour. Broke a couple ribs, collapsed lung, spleen taken out, glass in my eye. Like I was basically dead. came home from that, had nowhere else to go. I'd love to tell you that I'm an inner patriot and that the planes hitting the Twin Towers was what got me to join the Marine Corps, but really I had no other direction. My friends that I had been hanging out with for a long time continued to go down deeper down the rabbit hole of drugs, getting into harder and harder drugs, and just being a part of that environment. Like, I knew that eventually it would take me. So the funny part is I left North Carolina to join the Marine Corps on a guaranteed path to war. And for me, there's greater odds of survival for that than everything else. For the next 10 years, I did a couple tours in Iraq as an infantry guy in the Marines, tour in Afghanistan, seen some things, participated in some things. Basically, for a decade, I was surrounded in a culture of booze, women, and violence. And it was one of the most spiritually bankrupt institutions, where Marines are good at fighting wars and running around with a rifle, but when it comes to being a true warrior and following God, like, it just wasn't on the agenda. Fast forward to 2015, I meet my wife in a place just like this in Kandahar, Afghanistan, at Kandahar CrossFit. And instantly, for the first time in my life, a woman was putting me in check. I was challenged not just by her personality and her beauty, but it was her faith in God that kind of made me pause. She let me know her intentions right off the bat, that was like the most important thing in her life, and that I was going to have to choose to participate or choose to move on to somebody else. She went home from Afghanistan. She was in the Navy in January 2016. I hurt my neck in Afghanistan and came home. And for about the next month and a half, I was on 24/7 painkillers, opiates, and I was having some of the most violent nightmares that I had in a long, long time. I woke up one night, I was visiting her in Wisconsin, and just was having dreams that I was gonna kill myself. And suicide was always kind of, just because of the faith that I grew up around, suicide was always kind of like not an option. So that night when I looked in the mirror, I was like, it's the pills. So I flushed all the pills and decided that I would drink instead. So from basically March of 2016 until June of 2018, I drank, and I drank a lot. I was mean. The way that I treated my family, the way that I treated my wife, I was rotting from the inside out. And she knew it, and I knew it. And then I took it as disrespect, but now I know that the things that she would say to me were because God was putting something on her heart, that this was not the path that I was supposed to be on. And in June of 2018, my wife and I had an argument. Argument ended. And then I was in the kitchen, and she came up behind me and startled me, caught me completely off guard, and the next thing I knew, she was on the ground with a broken nose. Scared, she left and called the police. All that got ironed out and fixed, but that was rock bottom. That was the darkest time of my entire life, and with nobody left, everybody gone, and in an empty house, I got down on my hands and my knees, and I essentially cried out to God and begged him, asked him, said, give me an opportunity to save my family, and I'll never drink again as long as I live. So that was the day before that happened was the last day that I drank, and it's been over 5 years.
Yep.
I wrote some other things down just because my memory doesn't serve me as well as it used to. But so June of 2018 was that moment. I dove headfirst into every program at the VA, at church, Bible study. I basically went all in trying to figure out a path to not being filthy and disgusting. In September 17th of 2018, I was baptized in the creek behind my parents' house. And there's themes in the Bible that talk about dying to self. And to me, it was, I had to destroy the old version of myself. That guy is still under the water and in the creek.
Yeah. That's good, brother.
And then in July 17th of 2019, I had been fighting a long, poisonous, and toxic custody battle for my kids. So in July of 2019, my VA record had been subpoenaed with everything that I ever told to a therapist. My situation with my wife was turned into ammunition against me. And all I don't remember much of being in the courtroom for 8 hours, but it felt like I was having a stroke. And I lost legal custody of my kids. And then in November of that same year, an opportunity came up for me to go on a missions trip to the Himalayas. And I went with a team of missionaries from North Carolina with an organization called the Footstool Project that is an organization that seeks to build safe havens for kids that have been trafficked from that area of Nepal. And while I was in Nepal and in Kathmandu, we went to some of the Hindu temples, and like it became very apparent to me, like something that I had ignored my entire life, and that was like the spiritual warfare that the world uses to attack and disturb you and knock you off the path of God's plan. And you could just see the hollow look in the people's eyes. There was all these crazy monkeys running around that it just felt like the monkeys knew who we were. That sounds kind of crazy, but the way that they looked at us, they didn't look at anybody else like it. And it was like that there was some spiritual force pushing them to make us uncomfortable to leave their place. So I came back from that and COVID started. And long story short, a sequence of events unfolded before us and opportunities came up for us to sell our house and my wife to get into nursing school in Louisville, where she's from. And based on the stuff with the custody battle, it was all signs were pointing towards a tactical withdrawal from North Carolina to Kentucky. And I got instantly plugged into the jiu-jitsu community and with Pastor Miller. And the other day, Leah Costco, Meredith's daughter, she gave me this picture that she drew of me, and it was of me, and I had a t-shirt with a cross on it. And the other day I walked up to her and sat her down and was like, "You've never seen me, I don't have a shirt with a cross on it. Like, what is this?" And she was like, she said, "That's how I see you in my imagination."
Wow. That's good.
And to be honest, it scared the crap out of me. That these young kids, that they associate me with the cross. That's how they see me. And I feel like there's nothing more powerful than a story. I feel like there's nothing more powerful than a Jesus story. And I've always been told by every great warrior that I've been around that when a warrior tells a story, everybody listens. And I just want to read this verse to you guys, and that'll be that. And it's Romans 12:2. "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, and then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will." So I guess, what could I say that could get somebody in here? What could I say that somebody would believe or take a leap of faith? Is that if my mind can be renewed, if somebody with hands as filthy as mine can be redeemed and have a comeback story, everybody can.
Yeah. Amen. Thank you, brother. Love you, man. You know, the longer you hang out with us, the more Jesus stories you're going to hear. And you might be thinking, man, how could somebody bare their soul like that in front of people they don't know? It's because they're freed up in Christ. That is why we can tell these Jesus stories the way that we do. Jesus does change absolutely everything, but it doesn't come easy.